You know, a lot of people are kind of mad at me right now. But what else is new?
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody? Thai Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. And welcome to another episode, yet another episode, I should say, of Unbothered by Thai Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Thai Rivera. I'm here with both of my producers, Snoopy Bijou, and of course, DJ Lindy. Hang, 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 hang. DJ Lindy. He's looking at me like I'm nuts. But what else is new around here? I'm not the most popular guy in the world. Even in my own household right now, both of the dogs are mad at me because I gave them a bath. But it was bath time. And even me saying bath, they're both looking at me angry right now because they weren't happy, but it was time. And they're Chihuahuas. So if you look up Chihuahuas, because, I learned everything about my dogs from Google. If you guys aren't familiar with what a great resource it is, Google will be if you decide to get a dog. I always tell anybody that I'm talking to that's like talking to me about dogs, because when you have dogs, people will be like, I'm thinking about getting a dog. I might get a dog. Oh, I love dogs. And it's like, just Google the breed first so that you know what you're getting into, what to expect, and how to train them, because you will notice certain dogs have certain problems with things. Like Yorkies, I've read, can be very difficult to potty train because they're so stubborn. And then when it comes to Chihuahuas will for the most part do whatever you want. They want to make you happy. But you'll also notice, and this was in Google, and you'll read it and you'll be like, dogs are like people. They have certain personalities. But what we forget is dogs truly were bred for certain purposes. And so when it comes to Chihuahuas, one thing about Chihuahuas is they were bred to be pets. They were bred to be lap dogs and on you. And Bijou does not fit that stereotype, I think, because Bijou is probably part terrier. Well, I'm sure she's part terrier. I'm just not sure what kind. And I'm not going to do like a doggy 23andMe or whatever. I know her little personality. It doesn't matter to me what she's mixed with. All I know is she's really cute and she's my favorite person in the world. But one thing that you'll read about Chihuahuas, it's definitely a Chihuahua trait that Bijou has, is if they think what you're putting them through is pointless, they will not do it. And so Bijou will sit so many times if I have treats and I'm training her. She'll sit so many times, and then at a point she'll just get like, okay, why do I keep sitting? I don't even know why I have to keep sitting. And then I'll leave her alone. And so now she's looking at me again. But, life is good. Some people are mad at me, if you guys haven't been paying attention to my YouTube, because I voted or am voting for Donald Trump, and I was honest about that. But I thought that everybody knew that about me. I've talked about it on several of my videos, but YouTube, one thing I'll say that it does a really good job at is for my podcast watchers, it will feed the podcast to them. And for my regular video watchers, it will feed that to them. So it's two separate things. And what I'm trying to do with my channel right now, just for anybody that may be paying attention to all the videos I do, maybe check that in your settings. When you hit subscribe or did hit subscribe, go to the subscribe button or the bell and then see if it has you subscribe to all videos or personalized. If it's personalized, change it to all so that you can get all videos, because I'm doing a lot of videos throughout the week at different points. Last week was kind of a slow one because I was on the road, which a few people asked me how shows were on the road, and shows have been really great. And I know that that's in part because, look, you guys, I am under no misgivings about what I am and how much maintenance I can be. I try to keep that to a minimum, but at the same time, I'm always going to be a certain amount of maintenance. There's always going to be a certain amount of bullshit, for lack of a better term, that's going to come with me. That's something that I've accepted about myself. To me, it's not really bullshit. To me, everything I do is very important to the whole of what I'm trying to accomplish. So I don't at all feel like it should be a problem for people, but I know sometimes people do see it as a bit of a problem. Like the amount that I'll want changes when it comes to if I don't like somebody I'm working with. I don't think I ever told you guys the story, and I know I haven't told you since I started my podcast back up. But there was one incident, and that was at Little Rock, Arkansas, and me and the owner, Wayne, talked about it last week, 2 weeks ago when I was there. And I outright fired my host, and it was Saturday night. It was after the last show, and she had been really browbeating me when it came to us leaving, because the way that it worked on that gig was they had asked the host to pick us up because me and the other comedian didn't have cars while we were there. We had flown in. And the club is right around the corner, like almost literally. It's like a block away or 2 blocks away from the condo that they put us at, the house. And she was in charge of giving us a ride there. And then the owner had said that he would give us a ride back. But she had taken it upon herself to make it so she was our ride back. And on the first night, she had gotten on my nerves because there was this family that was talking to us. And they talked to us for quite a while. I liked them. They were cool. They ended up coming out this week to the Thursday show. But what happened was this family had a really good time with us. They were talking to us for quite a bit afterwards. And then at a point, I got tired and I went inside. But she was still talking to them. And I didn't mind. I didn't mind just going inside. But there comes a point after the show where you're done with meet and greet completely. Because I always do go outside and meet. Unless it's something really like where the club just isn't set up for it, or there's no place to meet people. Excuse me, I know that might make some of you yawn, but unless the club's set up in a particular way, I usually will go outside and meet people, say hi, hand out cards so they can check me out on YouTube, all that kind of stuff. But what happened on that particular night, but my thing is, I do get a little bit tired at a point where I'm like, okay. And then I don't remember I had flown in that day, but that's not uncommon for me to fly in the day of the first show. This time I drove in and I got there that morning. But that time I flew in. And so I might have got there the day of. So I was just tired and I went inside at a point. So then me and the other comedian are inside, and when she's going to give us a ride home, she is giving us a ride home, and then she's like, they gave me money, they said it was for all of us, but since you guys didn't stay outside, I'm just going to keep it for myself. And I know that they had given $20 for at least $20 for each of us. I couldn't see exactly what she had, how many 20s she had, but it was all 20s. And so in my head, I thought, well, that's kind of shady, really, if they said that it was for all of us and then you just decided it was all for you because we didn't stay outside. If that's the punishment, I guess that's the punishment. And I wasn't counting on that money anyway because I didn't know they were going to give it to her. So I wasn't mad about that. But at the same time, I felt like, well, if you were going to do that anyway, why didn't you just keep the money and not say anything? Why did you have to be like, but I left that alone? Then she also does a bunch of jokes about how in her former life she was a hoe and all that stuff, which you guys know I have a connection with that world. So in my head, when she said that, it kind of was a one-way bonding moment because I was watching her on stage say this. And so for me, I was thinking, that's cool. She's been in that world as well. And so then we get in the car, and because that was the first night that we had done shows. And so we're in the car afterwards, and I was just like, so how long were you, in the business for? And then she was like, oh, I never actually did that. I have 2 degrees. I've never done anything like that. I just say it in my act because it's funny. And it really did hit me a particular way, because I just felt like it's almost like a stolen valor in a way, which sounds silly, but it kind of is. It's like you're talking about this like it's one of your life experiences, because she doesn't just say it, she does like a couple bits about it. And so I didn't respect that, but I know some people live in the world of absurd when it comes to stand up, and I don't expect everybody to be autobiographical like I am, because I am, for the most part, autobiographical. Like anything you hear me say on stage has really happened. One thing I will do, just to not introduce the audience to too many of my friends, to keep it streamlined, is like when I talk about my trans friends, I'll usually make it almost so it's one person consistent, which is my best friend or my closest friend that's a trans woman. And so just to not give too many different characters to the story, sometimes I'll assign stories to hanging out with her that would actually have been me and somebody else. But as far as all the stories I say, every one of them is true. I don't make anything up. And it's almost like I don't mind if people let it be known that they're just being absurd in some way. But when they pretend to be doing autobiographical, I think that's where I get thrown off, because I just get like, well, at that point you're lying to people and making up tall tales. To me, that's not really the same as stand-up or comedic license. But I don't make the rules, and so I'm not going to act like that was the worst thing in the world, but it did kind of hit me a particular way. And maybe it's because I'm very much from that world, so maybe that was part of it. But either way, it hit me a particular way. Not something I was carrying with me, though. What got on my nerves was the next night after the shows were over, she was like rushing us to get out of there. And so it's like, okay, cool. And then the night after that, she was rushing us again. And I noticed what was different was on the first night, that family really loved all of us. And they were telling her how funny she was. And they had said the same to me and the same to the feature. And they were talking to us. But, they really did like her. And so, but then on the other 2 nights, the audience wasn't particularly hot on her, but people were wanting to meet me, and I was literally talking to people each time she'd walk up to me. And it was very much like your wife shaking her keys at you type of vibe, where it's like, I gotta go. It's time for me to go now. I got things to do tomorrow. And it was like that flustered. And when she did it the first night, in my head, I was like, okay, maybe she's going through something today. I'll give anybody one. And so I was like, okay, maybe she's going through something today. So then night 2, this would technically be night 3, but night 2 of her tripping. Night 3, she does it again and again, just as Kurt. And I don't know why she was rushing us anyway, because the owner had said that he would give us a ride back if she was busy or whatever else. But instead, she chose to rush us both of those nights. And so we left, within a relatively short amount of time after she said it. It was sort of like, okay, let me just wrap up this conversation. But I was literally meeting people. And those nights, they weren't keeping us extra long. So it was kind of annoying. And it was just kind of a spoil sport type of thing where it's like, obviously, she's just upset because these people aren't featuring her like the family was the first night. And so on Saturday, she did it again. And we still had a Sunday show that week. this last time we didn't do a Sunday. It was just Wednesday to Saturday. And so on Saturday, again, she walks up to me, and that time I remember her telling me, "Oh, I got to go get my son." And like that. Like that's the way she was talking to me. And I just looked at her and I was like, "You know what? We all have places we could be." And then she was like, "Well, I don't even know." And she started to talk to me in a way that I'm just not having, especially once I snap at you, it's probably best for you to just retreat. Because at that point, I have gotten upset enough that I am just in go mode. And I will control myself to the point where nobody has to worry about it getting physical. This is a professional situation. But I will definitely let you have it verbally because I know that that's what you're begging for right now. And so when I got annoyed with her and said like that, and then she tried to snap back at me, I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and go home. Don't bother coming back tomorrow. And this was in front of some audience members that I had been talking to. But it's like, why are you interrupting me while I'm talking to people? Are you not polite enough? And she claimed to be a professional. She claimed to have 2 degrees. So I know that she knows how to behave, or she probably should, being a professional with 2 degrees. But maybe she didn't think what I do is important enough. I don't know. And I didn't assign that much weight to the way she was behaving. All I know was that's not the way a person behaves, especially in a work situation like this. I'm not your husband. I'm not anybody that you need to let know when it's time to go, especially when the owner has told you that he would. So you're giving yourself a job and then you're being bad at the job. So once she said that, I just told her, yeah, don't bother coming back. We don't need you tomorrow. And then she was like, "Oh, you don't need me tomorrow?" And I was like, "No, we don't need you tomorrow." And the owner was right up the walkway on the same, because, it's a balcony because it's an upstairs club. And so I just looked at the owner and I was like, "Wayne, we don't need her tomorrow. She's done for the weekend." And then he was like, "What?" And so I was like, "Yeah, she's done." And then I excused myself from the people I was talking to. I went over to Wayne and I was just like, "Yeah, that's not happening. I'm not having anybody shake their keys at me or let me know when it's time to go." And he was like, "I don't even know why she's doing that." And he was like, "But yeah, if you say that she's done, then she's done for the weekend and we'll go ahead and call somebody else in to take her place." And I was like, "Good, thank you." And, I keep trying to tell you guys, I have been me for too long now. And I really try my best to be as cool and respectful with people as I possibly can be. But there are a lot of people would know what they would call home training in this business. There are a lot of people that come into it and decide because they had a good set that now they're in charge of the show. And it's like, well, you had one good set and the rest were so-so. And you're too dirty to be a host, but I'm forgiving that because I know that sometimes clubs will pair me with people that are usually too dirty for most of the headliners that roll through their town. Because a lot of headliners don't even let you be dirty if you're the host. If you're the host, you're supposed to conduct yourself with a certain amount of restraint that would be kind of more PG-13 at the most, so that you let the audience settle in before you hit them or they get hit. Excuse me. I shouldn't be this tired, but I've been waking up at 9 a.m. lately. I don't know why. My body's just been doing it. And I already told you guys that too. My body does whatever it wants to. I go with the program when my body tells me to. My body says what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, those are my marching orders. But, yeah. So, I don't know why these people do this kind of stuff, but I always feel like it's the most important for me to be the most comfortable in these situations, because a lot of people don't realize that about stand-up comedy. And whenever you see a headliner, understand that the host has already had their way with that audience. Sometimes there's a guest set that's had their way with that audience. Then the feature goes up, and if it's a good feature, we'll give them a good 20 to 30 minutes, which that was what was happening on this particular weekend. I can't remember who was with me that weekend, but I know I had a good feature that weekend because I remember really enjoying the shows. I remember as far as, and even she was too dirty, but still all right, you know, and I do mean all right. And that's where in my head, a lot of times I don't pay attention the most to the opener, even the feature, to tell you the truth, because I feel like I bring along people that I know are going to do well. So sometimes I'll watch them for the first night if I'm feeling it, or I'll at least watch the first 10, 15 minutes. But either way, I don't usually sit there and watch the whole show. And so, and you know, there's people that act like that's me being full of myself. Like, you don't watch the whole show. And it's like, no, why would I? I've been doing stand-up for 21 years. I know how this goes. If everybody's doing their job, why should I have to supervise? Nobody's paying me to give them notes. I'm not in charge of quality control on that particular show. I'll know when it's not going well because somebody will tell me, the owner will tell me, or I'll be outside smoking a cigarette and somebody will come out and be like, that person sucks, which has happened before, but it hasn't been with people I bring along. But anyway, so it's like people are just attracted to this business that aren't always wanting to be, or that might be part of it too, is a lot of people don't see this as a job even when they're doing it. They don't see it as like an environment you have to be professional at, because you start off on open mics, and open mics are a very kind of lax situation, and you're all kind of at the same level. And so a lot of times when people start doing actual shows, they don't understand hierarchy or pecking order. So they think that you're a comedian and I'm a comedian, so I could just be however I want. And I'm like, no. I mean, like, yes, to a certain degree, you be your personality and whatever else. But when it comes to you getting on my nerves, that's where I will remind you of professionalism. And so she was dirty though, because like, it's weird even when they'll make the announcements dirty, because there are certain announcements they have to do. Like, there's comment cards at the club. There's also telling people to tip the server. I've heard what the breakdown is. And back in the day, I think I may have hosted one of the Looney Bin clubs, so I might even have known their announcements at a point, you know, or had to deal with them. I do apologize for the amount that I'm yawning right now. I don't know why. I just got tired out of nowhere. I wasn't tired until I started doing this podcast. Maybe people not behaving in a professional manner wears me out. Let's say that's what it is. But anyway, and then, you know, I'll tell you guys a story. And this one, I think I told a long time ago, but without using names. But I'm just going to use a name because that time I was really trying not to use the name. You guys won't know it anyway. But I was really trying to not use the name because I didn't want to throw anybody under the bus. But I think it's an important story to tell about why I do things the way that I do them. And understand, I am never looking to excuse my behavior or looking for an excuse for my behavior, because I really just behave the way I behave and act the way I act, and people can either be cool with it or not be cool with it. If you guys think I'm too much of an asshole or whatever, if there's any kind of feelings like that, please, by all means, stop watching. And I don't say that because I'm trying to push people away. I'm really not. I want people that actually get me, and that's a part of why I'm having this not problem on YouTube, but why I'm just being very clear with people on YouTube that yes, I am a Trump supporter. No, that is not changing because you don't like it. And that is because I want my channel to eventually be about everything. I want to be able to talk about politics one day, a movie another day, LGBT another day. For a while, I was doing like almost all LGBT centric material and or content, and not all of it, but quite a bit. You know, there were times where I talked about the comedian that they were canceling. She was a black woman, and they were canceling her or trying to cancel her because she did a joke about her son. And you know, it's I guess an inappropriate joke, but to me it was just like a silly mom joke, even though I guess it could be considered a little bit dirty. But I didn't, you know, with mothers, I've been around so many mothers that just having to deal with their kids, whether they're boys or girls, that's such a special relationship that mothers to me have a lot of leeway, and maybe some things you would say they should have saved that for their best girlfriends, or maybe not done it on stage. But I think it's relatable for other parents, and especially other mothers. And I didn't, like, from listening to the joke, I didn't feel like it was at all inappropriate. So I thought that was ridiculous. And then I talked about Matt Rife's situation when they were trying to cancel him. And, you know, so I've done a few comedy videos, but they just don't do as well as my LGBT material. And that's because I know that when it comes to my channel, some people are there specifically for that. So but I want to like be able to be a little bit more versatile in the things that I can talk about on my channel. And I realize that that's going to not always hit the algorithm the way that I need it to for the views that I like to get. But I'm willing to take that hit because I'm confident enough in the way that I talk and the way that I make things fun, and just the way that I explain sometimes, because some stories are more informational or require more informational approach, and I have to actually know what it is I'm saying. And so sometimes I have to read, and I don't mind reading off my phone or looking at my computer screen to read a particular story. If you watch my regular videos, you know I do that sometimes. I try to be as entertaining and fun about it as I possibly can, but sometimes if I'm doing like a news story type thing, I want to get things right. I don't want to be a guy that's just saying things. I want for you guys, or if it's that audience that's different, to be at the end of the story, I want people to be well informed and also entertained. So sometimes I have to be a little bit of a journalist, and I do a fair amount of research on most of the things that I will do videos on. Even if it's like TikTok videos, I'll go through several of their TikTok videos. I'll look at their history as far as what, you know, if I'm talking about them displaying a particular pattern or being a particular way. There's one video that I did not too long ago, a TikTok video about the girl at Dollar General. Well, the trans man at Dollar General who still looks and seems like a girl, but claims to be a trans man. At Dollar General, and that one ended up being like a 42-minute video. Got a lot of views though, like 50,000 views. But that one was a lot of work and a lot of me researching this person, because it turned out to be, I had argued with her before, like she had gotten mad at something I had said, and it turned into a whole thing where she was harassing me for 2 days. So when I got that video, I was like, okay, I have a personal connection with this one. And she's still up to her same bullshit that I noticed back then. So I made a full 42-minute video about that. I didn't know what it was going to come out to. I just was chatting and recording and going through things, and, you know, not me going through things, but going through her TikToks. And so that was, you know, that's what that had to be. But my point is, I sometimes do a lot of research on these things, and I have to get things down, and I you know, want people to see more than one thing from me, because you can only talk about LGBT for so long. Even with as much as the community and the activists keep messing up right now, it can't just be all LGBT all the time. And I need to be a little bit more stimulated or be stimulated a little bit more on the creative end. And if I'm just doing the same thing all the time, then it's just kind of different versions of the same thing over and over. And it's a little bit like Groundhog's Day. You just keep having to repeat the same day again. Okay, well, this trans person did this, and men are men and women are women. And yeah, you can be trans, but it's also gonna still make it so you're not biologically this, and there's still females and males and sex, and and so and it's silly that I would say it that way, but that's what it turns into when you do too many of them, and then I stop feeling them, and then I start feeling like I'm only doing them for the views, which turns out to be the money. And yeah, I like money, and yeah, I want to do well off of my YouTube, but at the same time, it's not worth it if you don't feel on any level fulfilled creatively, which has only happened once so far, and that was when I first started doing the videos that were in that vein. There was one particular point where my channel was just getting so many views per video, and it was really great, and the money was really great from that too. But then it just became like I have to keep seeking out, and people were sending me stuff, which is cool, and I appreciate it. I always appreciate when people send me ideas for videos, whether it be LGBT or otherwise, and there are a lot that I plan to do from what people have sent me, but it just got very like mundane and just the routine. And so my point is, and I keep saying my point is, but I just have to keep reminding myself that there is a point to everything that I'm supposed to be saying, that I can't just do the same thing over and over. It becomes too repetitive. And so I know that for right now, I'll take a little bit of a hit on the way the algorithm deals with me, because I am talking a little bit about politics. Some weeks it'll be heavy like that just because people are talking about politics, or there are certain things that are happening, especially right now with Trump. And I do want to be able to cover some of that stuff. But at the same time, if I'm as open as I am in every other facet of my life, and if I'm as open as I am about supporting Trump as I am in the streets or when I'm talking to somebody, then I would feel like I am lying to my audience to not talk about the fact that this is my slant. This is where I land politically, because otherwise people are going to be, to me, that's when it's dishonest and sneaky, is if I feel this way and I'm not saying it, but I'm kind of saying things that push you in that direction, or that make it seem, and maybe I should be deceptive like that, but I just don't want to. I would rather be outright. And then if you look at certain things I say and you're like, well, he has a little bit of a bias because he's going to vote for him, or of course he's going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's going to vote for him. I would like to think that I am not that, but at the same time, I am human, and that is a very human thing to do. So at least this way, and you can take certain things with a grain of salt. You can be like, okay, this is probably him giving him the benefit of the doubt because he's going to vote for him. Or sometimes I'll tell you, look, I'm going to vote for him, so I don't really care if that's something he said or that's something he's done, because there are just a lot of things that don't really bother me that people do, especially people that are in certain positions, because I've learned that as much as people will lie and act like they really have morals, when it's the person that they would rather not get on the bad side of, or has a particular amount of celebrity and they don't want to ruin their connection like that, people will completely drop their morals. And that's one of the biggest things I have when it comes to like Diddy in that situation, or Bill Cosby, or take any one of them, Harvey Weinstein, any one of them. And I mention those names because those are the most egregious, right? Those are the ones that everybody acts like, that is disgusting, and I can't believe that happened. There's a bunch of people around them that know that that's happening all the way through, and never choose to step up, never choose to be a hero until they know that critical mass has reached a point where everybody's going to go along with them and they don't have anything to lose. So once they no longer have a job with that person, or that person can't provide anything for them, I'm sure with Diddy, as bad as this sounds, I'm sure there were plenty of people that were willing to turn a blind eye to what was happening to Cassie or Kim Porter or Misa Hilton, which, in case you guys don't know, those are all people that Diddy had been with. Misa Hilton was his first baby mama, I believe. Then Kim Porter held a couple of kids for him, which I know I shouldn't say held a couple of kids, but they had a couple of kids together. And then Cassie is the one on the video that we all know about, or the one that really broke the whole thing by talking about it and just stepping forward. But so there are people that saw him be the way that he was with all of those women. And I'm sure that there was a point where he was not at all financially beneficial to them, no longer employing them, or whatever way that they would have maybe gotten a monetary reward from him, or a monetary, it was no longer a financial situation, but they still liked the parties. They still wanted to be able to be invited to the parties and hang out with the celebrities and meet their favorite rappers. And so they would turn a blind eye to what he was doing that was abusive, so that they would not lose their party privileges. And that's just the way people work. So with me knowing that this is the way people are, I don't really understand when people pretend that they have such strong convictions to so many things, because, and some people would be like, some people will try to hide behind the fact that, like, I'm not a celebrity, so I don't care. I would tell them that what they were doing is wrong. And it's like, no, you wouldn't. Because the further down the line you go and the less of a connection you have to that world, the more likely you are to put up with it. Like me, in that way, I am a rare bird, because I've corrected several people that were, but it's never worked out for me in the way that everybody around them, i.e., or, by default also around me at that point, because we all have that same mutual connection or know that person. And I'm not subbing on anybody right now, but my situation with Mothership is a good example of that. There's a bunch of people that were on my phone and in my DMs on Instagram and seeing me in person when I was around, that were telling me how much they agreed with me. And all of this has gone down the way that it's gone down, and not a single one of them, except for one person, and I'm not going to say who their name is, but I feel you, because that person has been vocal and open about the fact that, and then there's also an open mic guy. I can't remember his name. If I could, I would say it, give him a shout out, just because he was very open about the fact that he didn't care. And he was willing to admit that he didn't agree with the way that things were going down, and he didn't care about consequences. And that was a rare bird, and I really do respect him. I don't not remember his name out of disrespect. You guys know I have a bad memory, and also he's not like a guy I usually hung out with or whatever. But I definitely do respect him for being as honest about that situation. But not a single person really. Leonarda was very open about, feeling the way that she felt. But you notice that, I had the same thing happen with me in Vegas. Like, everybody knew that I wasn't lying, and I wasn't just making things up, or I wasn't just being difficult, or whatever it was. Everything I was saying there was legit, but everybody was afraid of consequences. So, I don't expect people to really be what they say they are. So sometimes when people try to kind of hold me to that standard in that way, it's like, well, I'm not really condoning anything terrible, in my opinion, anyway. These are all just kind of moral dilemmas that some people have, like, do I care that Donald Trump paid Stormy Daniels any kind of hush money, and that was possibly or obviously, possibly or obviously for the purposes of not having that get in the way of the election? I don't care about that. That's what it is. I feel like the real problem in all that was he paid her $130,000, I think it was, in hush money, and she didn't hush. That's the problem I would have in that situation, because I can tell you guys honestly that if somebody paid me $130,000 in hush money and I was willing to hush for $130,000, if I said that, yes, that is my price to hush, I will hush, then I'm going to hush. I had one situation that I was talking to a close friend about because I trust them, and it's not like it'll never go anywhere. This is that kind of friend that I know that it wouldn't go anywhere. But I told them about a situation I had with somebody that was a well-known person. I guess you could say famous. But I had a situation where this particular person had owed me a decent amount of money. And there was a point where I had to let them know, I'm not accepting that you're just going to stiff me on this money. This was years ago, and it was I'm not going to accept that you're just going to stiff me on this money. I actually do need this money. And they're a person that makes so much money that it really would not hurt them to have paid me what it was they were supposed to pay me. And I did tell them, I will not be cool about this on any level if you do not pay me my money. And I didn't say it in those words. I said it in other words, but they knew that that was not going to work out well for them if they didn't just handle things the way that they needed to handle them. And so they went ahead and paid me. And this was 100% money that was owed to me. This wasn't any kind of I was asking for extra. Technically what it was I had put money out because they told me to. They were do this particular thing. When you do it, I want you to do this because I want you to do this particular project with me, and you're going to need this in order to do it. And so I will pay you back, but you just go ahead and pay them for now so that you get the ball rolling. And you could say kind of naive, I guess, or I would just say I was trusting them. And so I didn't ever think in my head in a million years that they would lie to me about that. So then when I told them that I had paid that money, they just kind of blew it off the first time I told them, but they're a busy person, so I wasn't trying to make a thing of that. And then we get to a month or two later, and then it's, time for me to move on to the next job, the next road stuff that I'm going to do or work that I'm going to do, and no longer work with them. And they were trying to stiff me on that money as well as some other money. And like I said, this was a significant amount of money, especially at that time for me. It was not money that I could just accept that I had just lost, that I had just put out and was not going to get back. And I never would have put that out for myself. I never would have done that for myself. I just wouldn't have. It never would have occurred to me in a million years to do that. For myself and put out the money, but they insisted and they said they would take care of it. And so they did. And my point is, that's what this episode will be called, is my point is. But my point is, they paid me the money. They made everything good. Everything. They paid me every bit of what they owed me. And since then, I've never told anybody that story until the other day when I told my friend the full story and included a name. And now I've told you guys kind of, but not really, and I didn't include a name. But I would not say their name because as far as I go, they paid me what they owed me, so what's to really talk about? They made good. But anyway, the thing I was going to tell you guys, the story I was going to tell you guys, see, I remember this time that I'm supposed to finish a story with you guys, was the time that I learned kind of not to help people out based on whatever their protected status would be. There was a particular comedian, you know what, I will not throw them fully under the bus. We'll call this comedian D, okay? And D was a female, and she worked for a comedy club. And so what happened was D at a point called out the Ha Ha Comedy Club. And if you know this story or you know who I'm talking about, I don't mind. Like, if it's other comedians, I don't even care if you put it in the comments. I'm just being as not messy as I can be about this situation. Because like I say with everything, I have no hard feelings towards this person at this point. And really, they screwed themselves, not me, even though they did kind of screw me. And that's why I was annoyed with them initially. Also, if I put my neck out there for you after you go on some kind of this is my cause type thing, then you better deliver, or else I will not be, like, I'll be cool with you. If I see you, I'll say hi, I'll be nice, I'm not going to treat you like whatever, but I'll never do anything like that for you again. So what happened was D called out the Ha Ha Comedy Club on Facebook. She put up this post, the Ha Ha Comedy Club does not use women, does not have female comics on their lineups. And it was a really dumb thing to do because Ha Ha Comedy Club, at that time especially, had been so instrumental and so helpful to Kate Quigley, which I know people have their feelings about Kate Quigley and whatever else, but this was before any of the stuff that people have any feelings about her on happened. And so this was just chronologically where we are and historically what was going on. And so HaHa was using Kate Quigley quite a bit. And, you know, I had worked at HaHa enough. I cussed out the owner at one point, but that's a story for another day. I'll tell you guys one day, but this, I only have so much time left. And I got to make something to eat, and it's already midnight. So she called out the Ha Ha Comedy Club publicly on her Facebook and said that they don't have women, and that was not true. And so I went ahead and hit her up in private message, and I was like, hey, you can do whatever you want. Everybody knows I do and say whatever I want, because I was like that already by then. But I was like, this probably isn't the best look for you and isn't going to help you out. I'm not really worried about the looks. I'm worried about the effect. So things can look as bad as they want to look, but if you're making an enemy of the Ha Ha Comedy Club, and I knew where she was at in her career as far as how new she was or whatever, and this was after I had left LA. And so I just felt like it was my duty as a friend to be like, that's probably not the way to go about this. And so I hit up the Ha Ha Comedy Club. I hit up Jack Jr., the son at the Ha Ha, and because, you know, there's Jack Sr. and there's Tere, who's the mother or the wife, and Jack and Terry really do, but, you know, it's people say Terry, but it really is Tere, like Teresa. And so it's Tere is what it is. So if I say it that way, it's because that's the way I think of her, is Tere. And but yeah, so it's Jack and Tere, and then it's Jack Jr. And Jack Jr. was starting to handle a lot more of the booking and stuff. And so I knew he was the one that was in charge of that. And I think he had said something in the comments, but I had a good relationship with Jack Jr. Still do have a good relationship with Jack Jr. But I told him, or I hit him up private message, and I was like, hey, I told Dee to go ahead and take that down, and she said that she would do it. And, you know, I was like, and I know that, you know, this probably hasn't been the best day for you or the best experience, because, you know, he had to deal with it on some level. This was during those times when it was sort of closer to Me Too, or that whole yes to all women, and when they were really pushing the like use us just because we're women, which is something that I really didn't agree with and don't agree with when it comes to stand-up comedy. I don't agree with it should be a certain number of brown people, a certain number of gay people, a certain number of women. I truly do, in my heart of hearts, believe that if people do things on a true meritocracy, which I know that you're never going to find in stand up, but if they really did do them on a true meritocracy, not lying like Joe Rogan does and saying it's a meritocracy, but then you put your friends on anyway, who sometimes aren't the most funny, but they maybe feel a quota. I don't know if that's the thinking, but I'm just saying that some places will really say it's a meritocracy, but it's not. So when I say a true meritocracy, I do mean a true meritocracy. So if you're doing things on a true meritocracy, you really will naturally have enough diversity because there are enough funny of everything that you can get it done. And that wasn't me being shitty, but it's just, we'll talk about that another time. But I hit up Jack and I asked him if he could possibly forgive Dee, even though I knew that that wasn't the best situation. And he told me, I really like you, Ty, but I really didn't appreciate her doing that. So I'm not going to do anything to help her out. And I can't blame him, because that really is one of those situations, like my situation with the mothership. I don't go around trying to get in there or want to be back over there. I really do like the peace and quiet that I've found from not having to deal with all that stuff. But I would not ask any of my friends to go talk to them. And she didn't ask me, to her credit. I just thought maybe I could help smooth that over. And I really did like her. We always had a good relationship. I thought she was a good person. I think she's a good person. And the last time I had seen her, because like I said, this was after I left LA, this was all happening in LA, I knew that she wasn't very good, but she was really trying to get up as much as possible. And a lot can change in a short amount of time if somebody's doing a lot of work when it comes to stand-up. So I really wasn't tripping off of any of that. I felt good about things she said. She said that she had done a couple shows for Russell Peters, and she said she had something else coming up that was kind of big. And so I thought, wow, maybe she's doing really well or whatever. And so when he said he wasn't able to do it, I hit her up and I was like, hey, I know I told you I'd at least try to smooth it over, because I had told her, like I said, but she did not ask. So I'm not pretending that she asked me to do this. She did not. And so I was like, I wasn't able to smooth it over. But if you want to, I'm going to be at Stir Crazy Comedy Club, which is where is it? In Glendale, Arizona. Yeah. Which is basically Phoenix. But it's in Glendale, Arizona, and I was going to be performing there in a couple of months. And I was like, so if you want, because I remember she had told me that her mom or somebody was in Scottsdale. Like, she didn't live in Scottsdale at any point, but her mom had moved there after she had grown up or something like that. And so I was like, if you want, you can feature for me in Scottsdale or in Glendale. And then she was like, yeah, I would love that, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay, well, just make sure that you're doing plenty of shows, doing plenty of open mics, really. Because like I told you guys, I really want my features to kill it and for the club to want to use them again. And I want that to be, and also I want a good show. And so with her, I told her, like, just make sure you're getting up like you need to and stuff like that. And, that was her whole thing. She's a woman and she doesn't get this many chances and people. And then there's also the legitimate things, like when female comics say that they have to be careful when they go on the road with guys, because some guys will invite girls on the road and then try to be creepy with them, or it'll turn out that they didn't care about their stand-up. They just thought she was pretty, and that's unfortunate, but that is something that clear or truly does happen. So me being a gay comic, I sometimes will make it a point, or used to make it a point. Now I don't so much anymore, but I would make it a point to bring female comics on the road with me, because then that's one less thing they have to worry about. Any woman knows, I don't care how drunk I get. I don't care what I'm on. I am not trying to creep on a woman, hang out with a woman, even legitimately date a woman. I'm not trying to do any of that. So you're 100% safe if you come on the road with me. And so, I was sympathetic to her plight. She was having trouble getting booked in LA, which, no matter what you are, can be difficult to get it booked in LA. It's just what it is. I got booked a lot in LA, but not everybody's going to be me. Clearly. But so what ended up happening was, night one, when we get to Glendale, Arizona, she shows up and she looks like she's going to a pajama party, which, with comics, they can dress how they want. I mean, like, Krangus wore sweats last 2 weeks ago, and we let him have it. But sweats and shorts are usually a thing. But with women, they can usually wear anything that looks somewhat nice. With men, shorts is a big thing. But I've seen women wear shorts on stage, and they looked cute or whatever, so nobody cared. But truly pajamas, like pajama type pants, and then a stringy top, like it looked like she was going to a slumber party. Hey, shout out to RIP slumber party. Moment of silence. That's enough. But it looked like that. And I was just sort of like, maybe she's going to change in the bathroom, or maybe she's got a costume change coming up or something like that. Nope, not at all. She ended up going on stage just like that. Pajama pants and that stringy top, like it was a slumber party. Okay, cool. I'm not going to make a deal of that. It's not what I was expecting. It's not very professional, but this was a Thursday. I believe that was a Thursday. So it's a Thursday. Do what you got to do. Make designers make it happen. And so she went up, and maybe 10 minutes into her set, if that, 5 minutes into her set, I think she was doing 20, so probably 5 minutes into her set, the owner of the club comes back, and he's like, hey, has she, and the way the green room is set up there is you're not even close, well, you're not close to the showroom, really. You have to go into a hallway and then walk down a little bit. So I can't hear what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And he was like, has she ever featured before? And I was like, she told me she had. I was like, she said that she was recently working with Russell and doing some other stuff. And he was like, okay. And I was like, why is it not going well? And he was just like, no, it's not going well, but it might just be first night jitters or something like that. He's super cool. And then I went in the showroom to see, and it was bad. Like, the audience was not having it at all. And I remember that the host had done well, and then I killed it that entire weekend. I mean, like, I was murdering those audiences that entire weekend. So I know it wasn't the audience, and she just did not do well. But that's night one, and like the owner said, I thought the same thing. Yeah, maybe shaking out the cobwebs. She's an inexperienced comic. I knew that. She was inexperienced to the road, so it's not like she was doing it all the time. So maybe, it's just a rough first night. Anybody can have a rough set. Anybody can have a rough show, including me. And so I was cool about it. But if you don't do well on your first night, what you should do if you're a comedian, really, this isn't me being shady or weird. This is something that I'll do if I feel like I had a rough night, or if I feel like it didn't go the way I wanted to, or if I'm working on something, is I will immediately go home and write. I'll write, and I'll go over my stuff, and I'll tighten it up, and I'll see what I need to be doing differently. Whatever it is, I'll do it. And so the next night when she shows up, which would be Friday, we have 2 shows. And she was like, Ugh, I'm so tired. I was at the casino last night, and again, she shows up looking like it's a slumber party. It's a different night of a slumber party, but it's still a slumber party. R.I.P. slumber party. But what happened was, she tells me that she was tired because she ended up staying at the casino till some ridiculous time of night. And I think she won $2,200, what was what she said she won at the casino. But either way, she had been at the casino the whole time. So in my head, I'm like, she probably didn't go home and write. This probably isn't a situation where she's going to do any better tonight than she did last night, which is not going to be good. And we have 2 shows. But still, benefit of the doubt, whatever. And so I decide to go in the showroom from the beginning of her set, and I wasn't doing it at all because I hadn't addressed with her that the night before hadn't gone well. She did poorly enough the first night that she should have known. Anybody would know, even if you're not self-aware, you would have to know that you did not do well for as bad as she did. So show 1 happens, and she does not do well at all. Again, does not do well. And the owner at this point doesn't say anything to me, is not in a bad way, not like he's not speaking with me, but doesn't address it with me. Just on the next show, he's like, we're going to have to rearrange the times, and Dee is going to have to do a shorter set. And I get it, because you don't want the audience to sit in that. And so... And it had gone that bad. And it wasn't anything. Maybe that's why he didn't talk to me about it, because there was nothing to say. We both know what was going on at that point, or how it was going. So then show 2, she does a shorter set, which you would think just do your best stuff in the shorter set. I don't know that she had best stuff, because she didn't do well at all on second show, even in the shorter amount of time. So, night 2 or night 3, when we get there Saturday night, the owner had to bring in another comic so that it wouldn't be on the host, because the host wasn't the most, he was able to do well for that longer bit on the other one, but he was a newer guy and by his own admission didn't really have that much material. He was doing great for a host, but he just wasn't able to stretch the way that you would want him to in order to make up for her time, because she was going to have to do even shorter than she did on the second show on Friday night, on Saturday night. And so the owner brought in another comic. Michael Turner is his name. Shout out to Michael Turner. I love him. I think he was still living in Phoenix that time, or maybe he was just visiting. But, he's now doing really well in LA. Opens for Trevor Wallace, I think, and is also just in his own right doing really well, and has always been super funny. I really like Michael Turner. But, yeah, so he had to bring in Michael Turner to come in and basically do the feature spot so that we wouldn't have that dead time and she could do a shorter set. Well, if you bring in another comic like that, even though it's not going to be a lot of money, Michael Turner is cool and he's somewhat local, so I'm sure he was great about it. I didn't ask what he was being paid, but he had to be paid too. So now the club is having to pay for an extra comic because I brought this person along that didn't work her stuff or didn't write between Thursday and Friday, and apparently didn't write between Friday and Saturday because she was bombing on those as well. Both shows she ended up bombing. And I was so disappointed. I didn't yell at her or even really address it with her, but there was a big part of me that felt like, this is why people are leery about helping people out when they say, give me a shot because I'm a woman, which is basically what she was saying to the haha, which is basically what she was saying to me, was that people don't want to give me a shot because I'm a woman. No, they're not giving you a shot because you're a woman. After seeing you for 5 shows, I can tell you they're not giving you a shot because you're not good. because you are not worthy of that shot yet. And when somebody gives you that shot, which is what I did, was I just gave it to you. I didn't make you work for it. I didn't make you prove that you were deserving of the spot. I took you at your word and I gave you the shot, gave it to you. And if somebody just gives you something like that, even if you're not worthy of it, even if you're not ready for it, you should make yourself ready for it. You should make yourself worthy of it. And that's something, if you're at all good at stand-up or if you're at all taking it seriously, that you should be able to do. Because like I said, she had a couple of months to prepare. I don't remember how many months it was, but there were several months that she had where she could prepare. I had to have been living in LA at that time. That's where I had to have been living, or Vegas at that time, because she was in LA and I know I was in Phoenix because I had to go to Glendale to do that set. But she had the time to make herself better. And if she wasn't better by the first night, like I said, she could have gone straight home instead of going to the casino. And then on night 2, she had gone somewhere else. I don't remember where she had said she had gone, if she had gone to hang out with friends. But again, she hadn't gone home to write, to tighten up her set. So I don't know if she thought she was just going to miraculously get better, or if the audience was just going to all of a sudden love her stuff. And then she was saying the audience was weird. Like that was something that happened where between one of the shows, she was like, they're weird, or they really just don't seem to like me here. Maybe they don't like female and she literally said that at a point. Maybe they just don't like female comics. And I was like, it was really hard for me because I didn't want to be mean to her, because she's one of those people that's like positive and yoga and meditating and all that stuff, you know. And so, and I, like I said, I really did like her. I really did want to help her out. But it was hard for me not to just be like, you're not doing well. You're not doing the job. It's not the audience. The audience has been fine for everybody else on the show. Do you really think it's because the host is male, I'm male, and Michael Turner is male, that on night 3, all 3 of us are doing well and you're not? On every show, there was no show out of 5 that they were okay with a female comic. It was just 5 different sexist audiences that couldn't stand a female comic. I can tell you honestly, if a woman is funny, the audience will respond to that. People have their opinions about everything. People have their opinions about gay comics, where they think a gay comic can't be funny. If a comic is good, no matter what their barrier is, they can make it past that barrier. 100%, I promise you that. There are very few audiences. Maybe if you're a black comic and you're doing a Klan rally, or if you're a gay comic and you're doing some anti-gay organization, yeah, maybe then you're not going to do well, and they really do. But what are the odds, and why would you take that gig anyway? This audience was fine, would have been fine with everything she was doing, but instead she blew it, and then she tried to blame the audience. And like I said, the owner, to his credit, like I said, he never addressed it with me in a way where it was like, you know, where he dogged her or anything like that. He didn't want to. I know he's such a nice guy that that's not his energy and that's not what he was trying to do. But I did feel a need to apologize to him about having to spend the extra money, and because I felt like now it looks like my word's not good and that I'm just picking people at random. And I did not throw her under the bus, but I was honest with him about the fact that I'm very sorry. She had told me that she was working for Russell, or was going to work with Russell, and had some other stuff coming up. And I just took her at her word, and I didn't ask her to see a tape, and I didn't do any of the things that I should have done in that way. I just really took her at her word. And that was my error in judgment. And I apologize. And I promise I won't do that again. I hope you'll still let me pick out my features. And that's all I could do. And he was like, you know, these things happen. And so he didn't make it a thing for me. Because also he knew, like, I was sincere in feeling like I had been played. Like that wasn't that wasn't at all an act or something. You know, I really did feel like I had been played because I really wanted to see her shine and see her do well. Like I said, I liked her. I still do like her. But I just was very disappointed. And it was just sort of like, yeah, you're making it harder for other female comics. When you try to make that your platform and then you don't shine in that position after you get that just because you are whining about being a female and how hard it is, now you've just made it harder for the next female because people will feel like, you know, okay, well, if somebody's just asking me for a shot, because I won't ever, I mean, like, I'll definitely work with women again or females again. I don't care about that. I'm not going to let that change everything for me. But just as far as doing it on the basis of that, I would not ever do that again for somebody that's like, because I'm a woman, they don't want to give me a shot, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, and since then I've really realized that the women that are good like that don't make that their argument. They might say that, you know, sometimes they deal with that as a thing with the club, and that's legit, but that's women that I've seen and know are good. Like, you know, they'll just be like, yeah, sometimes that can be kind of a thing, but not as much, you know. So it's, you know, because I deal with that with gay. Like, there's certain places that just don't think a gay comic, even though I've been doing this for as long as I have, and they can call a million other clubs and get a recommendation, or a million other spots and get a recommendation, but they just will be like, yeah, I just don't think a gay comic would do a good in this market. I don't think that my audience would go for a gay audience, or people do that with Black or Latino, and they do actually do that. But there's usually at least a workaround, even if it's like, okay, I'll go out there and do guest sets so that they can see me if you're open to doing guest sets, that kind of thing. But yeah, so we're going to wrap this up, but I'll just tell you guys that one of the most frustrating things was, like I said, I kept it cool, I kept it nice, everything like that. Then afterwards, I think she had some friends or somebody had, no, it was some friends of mine that had shown up. And we went down to this bar, and we had a couple drinks with them and talked or whatever. I think I was still not drinking at that point, but I hung out with them a bit, and she was there. And then I told her good night, and then she ended up calling me shortly after. And she said that she was, and I was already on the road back to Vegas. I remember that. I was already headed back home. And she actually had the nerve to be like, hey, I was just calling you because I'm hoping that we can work together again. I hope you don't mind having me feature for you. And I was like that. I was pretty silent when she said that. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think that that's going to happen. So it was good working with you. I hope you do well in the future. And that's really the way I left it. It wasn't like I gave her no hope. But I also didn't, like, even at that point, get into the, like, you didn't do well. Which, like, at this point in my life, because like I said, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. 2019, 2020. So, yeah, 4 or 5 years ago. So at this point, though, male or female, gay or straight, non-binary, I don't care what you are. If that kind of thing were to happen, I would definitely be like, you didn't do well. After night one, if that were to happen, I would either have you replaced, or I'd be like, you better go home and write, and tomorrow it better be at least better. But now I just wouldn't give anybody a chance like that to begin with, as far as I would have to see you and see you do well. Like, I'm going to be back at Stir Crazy Comedy Club in July. And I know that this is late for the announcement of that in the episode. Most of you probably aren't even watching anymore. But I will be at Stir Crazy Comedy in mid-July, I think it is. I think July 18th. You can look it up on their website, stircrazycomedy.com, I believe is what it is, or Stir Crazy. Yeah, if you put Stir Crazy Comedy in Glendale, you'll get it if you're in that area. I need to start telling people, because that one, I like, doing well for that club, or helping them sell some tickets, move some seats. And that's in a good part of Arizona for me. I mean, a good part of Phoenix for me. Glendale, I have a lot of friends and family that are in that area. And so, yeah, and just regular comedy fans in Phoenix now. And so, yeah, at this point, I would definitely tell somebody, or just not book them to begin with, because you got to be good. You got to do well. And so Krangus is that did Little Rock with me is going to be my feature in Stir Crazy, because he did so well, and I like working with him, and he's very professional, and I feel like I can trust him as a human being as well. He's just a solid guy. And yeah, I might go back out on the road. And if I do, then unless I do a co-headlining situation with someone, Krangus will be the person that I go with. I mean, like, I'll probably use him for a while and try to get him as much stuff as I can possibly get him. And if it doesn't turn into different work for him outside of me, at least I can get him a good amount of experience and really, help him build what he's building. And I don't have to help him like with his material or anything like that. He can figure that out. But with a lot of comics, there comes a point in their career where all they need is stage time. That's the most you can help them out, is by letting them swim around in that 20 to 30 minute range and just really get that down. And then before you know it, they're ready to do their own headlining shows. So it's like the lead a horse to water type of thing. You can't lead a horse. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But if that horse is thirsty, you don't have to make him drink. Anyway, that's it for this episode, everybody. Stay unbothered.